So why did I renounce my letters in AKA? It was a long journey, but let's start at the beginning. And I've posted about this before many, many times. But I think it's so important to continue to share my testimony with more people, especially since so many people I've told seem convinced that this was just a personal choice I made simply for me and my personal preferences or my personal convictions, but it has no impact on them and their affiliation with any Greek letter org or just has on their lives in general. So salvation is at stake. And for me, speaking on this topic repeatedly, just to keep one from perishing, it's worth me repeating over and over. So I share this with you today as a warning for you to start to understand the darkness that you sit under. And I'm asking God to make the soil of your hearts, for those listening, to make it fertile to receive what I'm about to share. Of course, over my 8 years' time as a member of AKA, I had heard numerous people randomly say that sororities are a conflict with Christianity, but I never believed it or found it to be true for myself. And it's not that I really looked into it thoroughly or cross-referenced it with the Bible either. I just considered myself Christian and believed I put God first. So when the Holy Spirit himself brings you to the word and shows you your error, there's just no denying it. After that, my own self-righteousness had to go out the window. So in November of 2016, God made it plain as day to me that if I wanted to get closer to him, I could not bring my letters or the sorority with me. And I renounced my letters in December 2016. So let's go back a little bit and start with some history. When I was a member, I adored AKA. I don't understand, like y'all don't understand how much respect I had. I looked up to the ladies that I met along the way, prophytes and people who were part of my pre-pledging. It's not that I hated the org and got mad and left. There was nothing about me that wanted to leave AKA on its own if it weren't for the Holy Spirit revealing it to me. A little background on me, I'm the first woman in my family to go Greek, and I was very proud of that. There are two uncles I have that are Greek. One's a Kappa and one's a Alpha. I became an interest back in 1998, but God kept blocking me from joining this organization. Then in 2000, when I was being considered for membership, I had to stop my pursuit due to outstanding tuition. So I had to withdraw from school for that semester, and I transferred to another school and started my pursuit again. In 2001, I was an interest in a city chapter in New York and didn't make the line in '02 after 12 weeks of pre-pledging and quote-unquote study halls. I was one of the shining stars in my interest group, had all the requirements, but the regional director at that time decided, even though I met the threshold for membership, she was only accepting people with the highest GPAs. And when I tell you, I cried. Not even knowing these blocks were being put in place by God to protect me from my own foolish self, ignorance and darkness, I cried. That city chapter was like my love. I had always held the utmost respect for the members of that chapter. They showed me a side of AKA that was so above what I had experienced as an interest in any other chapter and carried themselves in an upstanding way. I wanted to join a sorority for the sisterhood and honestly for mother figures. I have shared before on other blogs that I was adopted and surrounded by women who I was never really sure loved me or just felt obligated to raise me. So in some ways I was looking for love and mentorship, fulfillment, friends, camaraderie. The list goes on and on when you don't have a strong mother figure. So in 2003, I wanted to be an interest again, but I got pregnant and needed to focus on adulting. And also I was a senior in college. So time passed, but my desire to join never went away. And then in 2007, I was in grad school and decided to look into grad chapters. And after one interest meeting, I was on the short list of considered candidates for the 2008 line, and I crossed in 2008. On the day I crossed, I was so happy, but I drove home feeling a little unsettled. There were initiation moments that felt weird to me, and I couldn't explain them or really put my finger on it exactly. So I went home and looked up conflict between Christianity and sororities, but nothing posted at that time really jumped out at me or stuck whatever I thought I felt. The first 2 years in my chapter were tumultuous. It was like all the smoke and mirrors fell down, and I could see clearly how things weren't what they seemed to be. I don't know why I believed an organization full of women would be a bed of roses. It was simply a microcosm of the real world. Some members didn't like other members. 20% of the people did 80% of the work. And when standards weren't met, they threw each other under the bus. I mean, just not the rosy picture I envisioned. And for me, even the community service was futile. It took months to accomplish small service efforts, projects that I felt delivered very little impact. And I actually started my own nonprofit during that time to do my own service work because I just didn't like the roadblocks. I knew I didn't want my daughters to join unless they had a chapter that was on point. And within 2 years, I was inactive, considering just going general, just to keep attending conferences and other social events where I could meet great sorors. Then I was like, you know what? I'll just not reactivate. I'll stay a member for the networking and connections, and I'm trying to negotiate with God. And he just showed me piece by piece, dismantling AKA over a period of 2 to 3 weeks.